Good morning and happy Easter to you, Terry. How are you doing today? He is risen.
He is risen indeed. Good morning, Aaron. Happy Easter to you.
What a lovely day and what a lovely picture you've got here.
Oh, yeah, sunrise, right? So, Easter, we think of sunrise services and we think the wonderful things that happen on Easter Sunday. And so, we started with a sunrise for our first slide here. And this is actually out our back door. So, wonderful sunrise. We get to see these a lot out here in the middle of nowhere. So, I thought this was a great way to start our slideshow.
Absolutely. A beautiful reminder of a new sun, a new day, the sun risen. But today we're going to take a break from the normal discussion on 1 month to live in order to tie in our lesson to Easter, celebrating Easter today. The Lord is risen.
Right.
Yeah. So we just started the final section of the book on 1 month to live, and it's about leaving boldly, which is asking us what type of legacy are we actually going to leave for those who follow us once our life is over.
Right. And it's a perfect tie-in to Easter Sunday, right? The legacy that Christ left.
That's right. Yeah, there's no one who lived with a more focus on the legacy than Jesus did. And it's so apparent as we celebrate, his resurrection on Easter, and especially this Easter, not really being able to be together. So much of what Jesus did was to prepare his disciples for the time after he has left, his teaching, just the way he talked to them and told his parables. It was really about preparing them for when he left. But they didn't really always understand his teaching, and that made it difficult for them as they understood what the Easter morning was really about.
Right, exactly. I love this photo of the empty tomb, and so many things, like you said, they might not have understood, or it was pretty obvious they didn't understand while he was teaching them. And then this was the beginning of them understanding what he had talked about, his resurrection, the fact that he was raised from the dead and comes back and spends more time, really was the beginning of them making the final lap, making the connection to all the things that he taught him while he was there.
That's right. The empty tomb, he tried to be as plain as he could, but it was nothing that he could prepare him for until it actually happened.
Right.
Yeah. So Terry, as you think about past Easters, what sticks out the most for you?
So when I think about Easters, what I really love is Sunday services, Easter Sunday services, because everyone is fresh and bright, and people are usually wearing very colorful clothes, and it feels new. Just even when you spend time with the people that you love, with your Christian family, and it's also about food. I really think about food because. Not just food because it's food and, we're gluttons, but because food helps connect people. And so you share a meal together, and that's where you can really get to know people more and spend time in great in-depth conversations. And you're just enjoying sustaining your body with nutrition. And so those kinds of things really connect for me on Easter Sunday, just having family and everybody being so smiley and colorful, and food and just festivities. So that's your Easter Sunday memories for me.
Yeah, you're a bunch of smiley folks here on the screen.
That's right.
And all dressed.
How about you, Aaron? What does Easter Sundays mean to you?
Yeah, very similar. It's been for me, it's always been about family. I know when I was young, a boy growing up, it was spending Easters with my mom's family, where I learned how to play cribbage and spoons, and where we did coloring Easter eggs, which I'm not sure anybody does anymore.
Repurchased.
Exactly. Yeah, and learning how to juggle. I remember learning how to juggle on Easter Sunday.
Do we have any photos of that, the juggling on Easter Sunday?
I don't think so.
No, okay.
But so many great memories with my mom's family as I was young. And the picture you're seeing on the screen now, this is really my family's Easter. And since we've been married, the Campbell family has been getting together every Easter as our annual family event. And it's been great as the cousins get to know each other, and as we've played backyard football and had Easter egg hunts, both for the adults and the kids, and really just about being together again as a family. That's so important.
That's very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, but then 3 years ago, my mom was in her last days on this earth over the Easter weekend, and I remember that as well so much. As we celebrated Easter, she was not doing well, and we all knew that. And it's so many strong memories. But that's the holiday side of Easter.
Mhm.
It's we're really missing out when we only focus on that stuff. The true miracle, that changed the world.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a miracle that changed the world.
It absolutely was, and time marches on. All of these Easters, we look older than these pictures now. Some of the kids have grown up more. So while Easter is a point that, it's a point in time, right? As life marches on and time marches on, Easter is a reminder that, God's alive.
Mhm.
And that probably is the most important reminder, that we can have. He's alive, and he's here for us.
Right. And that reminded me of this scripture, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. What better example of that is Easter Sunday? All the frustration and all the friction we have in our lives and the things that are sad. Sorry about your mom, on Easter Sunday, not being in her last days, but a reminder is that I have overcome the world,
Mhm.
right? All these things will pass us by, and just remember, keep your eyes on me, and let me demonstrate that, right? Being raised from the tomb after 3 days, being raised from the dead, and having an empty tomb after 3 days demonstrates that he's overcome the world.
That's right. Even in the great memories and the sad memories, yeah, it's be of good cheer. I have overcome the world.
Mhm.
Bigger than any, just a holiday. It's much, much bigger than that, and we need to keep that in perspective.
Right. I love the holiday memories, right? And those are
Mhm.
all great, and those are all part of what connect us to Easter. But it is more than just Easter egg hunts and juggling, unfortunately. Here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Although I still can juggle a little bit today.
Oh, excellent. We may
That's
see
right.
that later on.
Yeah, exactly. So right now in our day and time, we're all in timeout, or otherwise, known as quarantine.
Yeah.
We're all alone and away from everyone, and we feel so isolated, or so lost, so fearful for many. It's just like it's the what next, the girl at the window, just
Mhm, mhm.
looking out and wondering what's going to happen next.
Right. I mean, sometimes we feel like this, right? I mean, especially now, like you said, while we're quarantined and supposed to keep social distance and, not supposed to interact with as many people. But sometimes, even outside of quarantine period, we feel like this, right?
Yes,
That this is life and I am disconnected. And do I have anyone around me? And how important am I to God?
that's right. We're waiting for something, just like we're waiting for the resurrection. We're waiting for something to change. And yes, and right now we're waiting in our quarantine for what's next in our world. It's interesting that as soon as we were told we couldn't go out, and be around people, we all start acting like little kids or little dogs, and it's like the thing that we can't have is what we want.
Right. Right.
We can't have our favorite stores, our favorite restaurants, our favorite whatever.
Our favorite people, don't
Our
forget those.
favorite people. Don't forget the people, monkey. That's right. That's what we want. What's what we want? We're locked in our houses with
Mhm.
only a few people, and many people are in fear about what's going to happen next. The plans that we just had, a couple weeks ago or even a month ago, it's a lifetime ago. So much has changed for us.
Right. I mean, it has changed a lot. I mean, us being quarantined has really highlighted a little bit about us as human beings. I don't know if you know, but overall, crime statistics have gone down because people are quarantined. But
Oh,
unfortunately, domestic violence statistics have gone up. Right.
yes.
So this quarantine is changing us. Right. It's driving us to be together, and it doesn't give us the outlets that we need. And
Mhm.
part of it, hopefully, is helping us to focus on what's really important. And so maybe the stores and the restaurants and the things that we do, we're filling a hole that should have been filled by something else, by our faith.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and we can see by these statistics, yes, if domestic violence is up, we're not filling that with the right things in
Right,
life.
right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna look at a verse from John chapter 20 verses 19, and this is This is after the resurrection, after Jesus has appeared to Mary Magdalene right outside the empty tomb. Mary just had returned to the disciples with the news, that she's telling them that, it was an empty tomb, and that she saw Jesus, who she thought was the gardener. And so verse 19, on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you."
Mm.
So these disciples, they were in quarantine, locked in a room full of fear. This was,
Right.
I believe, Easter evening, and what they thought they knew about Jesus's plans were shattered when they saw him die on the cross. They thought they understood what was coming next, but when he died on the cross, it all changed. So what was next?
Right.
They had left their jobs, they had left their families for him, and now he's dead. The world
Right.
had changed, and not in ways that they were understanding at this point.
Right. And even this was the third day, I think, like you said, right? And
Mhm.
so not only have they had the shock of the event that this is actually happening, but now they've had a couple of days locked behind doors in fear to wallow in this and to
That's
just
right.
be in their own minds, get in their own heads. And we're probably just in a really, really bad place thinking, like you said, what have we done? What have we invested all these years in? This is so much different than we thought it would be now.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, where they thought their situation was, or where they thought where we think our situation, it's very different. And we are fearful about not what's next until Jesus shows up and fully alive and tells us to have peace.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, in the world changed for the disciples, based upon that magnitude of the risen Jesus. And it's interesting that one of the quotes I've seen from C.S. Lewis is about to preach Christianity meant to the apostles primarily to preach the resurrection. And in Acts, almost all the sermons were focused on the resurrection. And once they understood, the resurrection and its importance,
Hmm.
once they understood that he had actually risen, that was the fact that began to change the world.
Right. This was the central point, right? This is the central point of our faith right now. That if this resurrection hadn't happened, then
That's
what do
right.
we really have? We're in the same position as the disciples were before they saw the risen Jesus. What? This isn't important. This was all an illusion. But
Yes.
now, because we actually have resurrection, and because we have celebration of Easter, it makes our faith of utmost importance.
It does, and so, unfortunately, so we've heard the story so many times, and many things with the Christianity. When you've heard it time after time after time, you know, are we actually taking it to heart? Are we actually believing it the same way we would have believed the same thing? And there's nothing bigger in our faith than this weekend and the resurrection, and we really hope that it's changed our lives for the better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you had said earlier, we're quarantined and our lives are really just dramatically changing. I mean, this will have a long-term effect, the way that we're behaving
Mhm.
now and the way that we have figured out how to live. And um, the fact that our lives have changed so dramatically hopefully gives us a connection to how the disciples felt, and all the followers felt back at that time, that their lives were so dramatically changed and things they hadn't expected to
Mhm.
turn out the way that they turn out. Just like we had no idea, right? We had no expectation 6 months ago, 3 months ago, that we would be quarantined in our homes for this period of time, and that the things around our planet were happening like this. What a dramatic change in our lives. And so hopefully that just gives us a little insight into how dramatically their lives had been changed. Their lives were just completely turned upside down.
Yeah, it was a week earlier for them that they were having the triumphal entry, and then all of a sudden the next week everything was upside down with their leader
Hmm.
dead.
Right, right,
What's next? I mean,
right.
who saw this coming like this? And they didn't, at that time, they didn't understand really the next step.
Right. And so, how did they deal with it? Right. They were locked behind doors. They were living in fear. How are we dealing even with this change in our lives? If we make that connection for a second. So how are we dealing with this change in our lives? Are we making the most of it? Are we investing in family? Are we investing in ourselves? Are we investing in our faith? Or are we just frustrated? Are we frustrated that things aren't the way they used to be and I can't do the things I used to do? Like you guys, are you out, taking a hike and being safe when you can? Are you doing lessons with your family? Are you playing board games? Teresa and I are connecting because we're doing stuff closer together, just the two of us, right? And it's drawing us together, and it's drawing people deeper if you let it.
That's right. And most importantly, it's again what Jesus said, peace be with you. Are we really at peace? And are we really treating others with peace and our families and those who are in need?
Right, absolutely.
Can
Or
really
are we just one of the increased domestic violence statistics?
That's right. That's right.
I,
Go ahead.
you go, please.
Oh, I was going to say, C.S. Lewis said that, either Jesus was a liar, a lunatic, or a Lord,
Mm-hmm.
as he shows in this quote. And either this did happen, the resurrection, the most important event in our faith, or, he was just a crackpot full of stories and lies. Apostle Paul said that, if this didn't happen, that we are to be pitied above all else,
Mm-hmm.
because we're believing what we know to be untrue and a lie.
Exactly. And if you look at, you read any C.S. Lewis, I think he also, in a different quote, talks about how he was a lunatic on the level of a poached egg. It was madness, right? For a man, a human being, to claim the things that he did and to just the experiences.
That's right.
He would have been a liar, a lunatic, or as we believe, he's actually our risen Lord.
That's right. This is the paramount event in the Christian faith, and are we actually believing it and living like it is?
Exactly. So, Aaron, if I could tie this back to the 1 month to live, right? So, like you had said, we are in the last section, which is about leaving boldly, and also, as you had said, there's no better example of leaving boldly than Christ. Not just the fact that he died on the cross, not the supernatural resurrection, right? Because we won't be able to do that. But just the way that he loved people unconditionally when he was on this planet, how he prepared his friends and family for his departure, and even for how he behaved and what he said during the last days, hours, and even minutes of his life. There was a lesson I ran across. The Greek word for "it is finished," right, on the cross, his supposedly last words were "it is finished," which is Greek tetelestai. And what's interesting from this lesson was the depth of this word, the depth of the meaning of this word. It means things like, between a master and a servant, hey, this work is done, right? I've done what you asked me to do. It means like the priest that would inspect the animal sacrifices, that this is perfect. This is a perfect work. An artist who finishes a work and says, it is complete. I have finished this work of art. The merchant, right? So this has been paid in full. There's no, here's your receipt. You don't owe anything else as a prisoner, right? That debt is paid. So the fact that he left boldly, right? With his last words, even. How many times do we, see on movies or hear stories or sitcoms where people get to the end of their lives and they fizzle out, right? Mm-hmm. They don't accomplish the things they want to accomplish, and they had just friction and frustration right up until the end. But not Jesus, right? He lived a life that was full, and he died confidently and willingly for us. So what better way to tie that to 1 month to live and leaving boldly to put us back, as we do the lesson next week, into that perspective?
Absolutely. And it's having that mindset of knowing what your goal is, and to keeping that in mind as you live through your life. And that's what the legacy is about, is Jesus knew what his point was because he was tied to the Father. He knew what he had to complete for his disciples' sake and for our sakes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even in quarantine, right? Are we spending our time wisely? Are we making the most of our time? Or are we just whiling the time away until we can go back to the things the way they were? I mean, the disciples weren't going back to the way things were, right? They were fully committed also, and living life boldly and leaving legacies. So are we doing that? I mean, Easter Sunday is a reminder to us that we have this amazing, precious gift that surpasses all understanding. And what are we doing with it? A resurrected Christ. What are we doing with it?
Yeah, I think the point you made there was outstanding. Is, in the 6 to 8 weeks of quarantine, is what are we going to change in our life that's going to have a long-term impact, right?
Right.
This is our chance to actually change something and to keep it going. If we just go back to the way everything was, what lesson have we learned?
Right.
Maybe
Exactly.
this is our chance to really change something in who we are as a family, as an individual, as a church, to be long-term very different. And that's what the disciples had to do. There was no going back. And can we say that there's no going back to our busyness, or some of the other, maybe habits that we got into? There's no going back to those. Let's take the step forward, because Christ finished it on the cross, and then rose from the dead.
Right. How beautiful it would be for us to get to the end of our lives,
Mm.
tying in with this lesson and being able to say it is finished, and to mean all of these things that are on this list. And then to hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Absolutely.
What a reminder on Easter Sunday for us to stay focused.
A beautiful reminder on a day that we hope, we don't just fill with family, although that's a good thing, but it's really to remember, the resurrection, the beauty of a resurrection morning.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate your time very much. Happy Easter to you and your family.
Happy Easter, and he is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Mm.
Have a wonderful Easter.
Yep. Happy Easter.